सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Om. Okay. Last, I think we were on page 118. Let me confirm. If that's the case, I had actually noted it down. $127. Sorry. That's the one. Okay. So we completed this. Would you like to read from here?
Sure. ततश्वेतैर्हयैर्युक्ते महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यौ शङ्खौ प्रदध्मतुः. Then Krishna and Arjuna, seated in the great chariot drawn by white horses, also sounded their divine conches. Having described the war cry of the Kauravas, Sanjaya, the narrator, then turned his attention to Arjuna, referred to here as Pandava, meaning Pandu's son. The name given to Krishna in this verse is Madhava, meaning the Lord of Wealth, Lakshmi. Throughout the Gita, Krishna was addressed or mentioned by different names: Rishikesha, Achyuta, Keshava, Janardana, and so on. Krishna and Arjuna were seated in Arjuna's magnificent chariot that was drawn by white horses, white being a color that could not be missed amidst horses of different colors. In response to the war cry of Duryodhana's army, Arjuna and Krishna sounded their conches, described here as Divyau, celestial, because they were not gathered in the ordinary way. Their names are given in the next verse. Panchajanyam Hrishikesho Devadattam Dhananjayah Poundram Dadhmau Mahashankham Bhima Karma Vrikodaraha. Krishna sounded the Panchajanya, Arjuna, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the man of terrible deeds, and one with the stomach of a wolf, sounded his huge conch, Poundra. Lord Krishna's conch was called Panchajanya. As we've seen, the bows also had names. Arjuna's bow was known as Gandiva. Dhananjaya was another name for Arjuna, and Devadatta was the name of his conch, meaning that it was a gift from a god. Bhima Karma was another name for Bhima, because he was able to do the most frightening jobs both in war and in peacetime. Bhima never undertook ordinary work. For instance, when Pandavas were living incognito for 1 year, Bhima was employed in the place as a cook. In fact, he appointed himself because he wanted to be able to eat a lot of food. He excelled at cooking in large quantities, the kind of cooking wherein whole pumpkins were dropped into huge cauldrons. There are two types of cooking mentioned in Sanskrit literature. One type is called Bhimapaka, cooking for thousands of people at a time. And the other is called Nalapaka, after King Nala, who was also a great cook, but for small numbers of people. We might think that Bhima must have been very flabby with a huge stomach and all that goes with it. However, that was not the case. He did not resemble a sumo wrestler at all. Here, Bhima was described as one who had the stomach of a wolf, that is, so hollowed out that it almost touched the spine. A wolf is always hungry, which may be where the expression keeping the wolf away from the door came from. This analogy is a good example of what is meant by the word lakshana. The word wolf is the implied meaning of hunger. Although a wolf is always hungry and eats a lot, its stomach remains the same, ever trim. We understand by the description of his stomach as being like that of a wolf, that Bhima was a huge man with a stomach resembling that of a wolf. Therefore, keeping hunger away was always a concern for him. Bhima also had very large lungs and therefore did not have an ordinary conch. Known as Poundra, his conch is described here as huge. The conches of the other three Pandavas, Yudhishthira, Nakula, and Sahadeva, are mentioned in the next verse. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthira Nakula Sahadevascha Sughoshamani Pushpakau. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew Ananta Vijaya, and Nakula and Sahadeva blew Sughosha and Manipushpaka. Although he was no longer the king, Sanjaya called Dharmaputra as King Yudhishthira here. That is because in Sanjaya's mind, even though Duryodhana ruled the kingdom, Yudhishthira was the real king, albeit in exile. Because Sanjaya never agreed to this war and knew Duryodhana was making a mistake, he never missed an opportunity to point this out to Dhritarashtra. Ananta Vijaya, meaning that which produces countless victories, was the name of Dharmaputra's conch. Nakula's conch was called Sughosha, meaning that which produces a pleasant sound. Manipushpaka, that which is decorated with precious gems, was the name given to Sahadeva's conch. काश्यश्च परमेश्वासः शिखण्डी च महारथः धृष्टद्युम्नो विराटश्च सात्यकिश्चापराजितः द्रुपदो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्वशः पृथिवीपते सौभद्रश्च महाबाहुः शङ्खान् दद्मुः पृथक् पृथक्. O king, the king of Kashi, an expert bowman, Shikhandi, the man of great valor, Dhrishtadyumna and Virata, and the unsurpassed Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and the mighty armed son of Subhadra, Abhimanyu, all blew their own conches. The king of Kashi was described here as one having a huge bow. Shikhandi was also mentioned as being another great warrior in Arjuna's camp. Dhrishtadyumna, the first commander-in-chief of the Pandava army, King Virata, and Satyaki, another king, were also mentioned by name. In these two verses, Sanjaya concluded his account of those who had sounded their conches in the Pandavas' camp. Addressing Dhritarashtra as Prithivi Pate, O king, Sanjaya then pointed out Drupada, the father of Draupadi, the sons of Draupadi, and Abhimanyu, the son of Subhadra, Saubhadra, whom he described as one of mighty arms, which is a description of Abhimanyu's valor, not the size of his biceps. Together, these mighty warriors blew their conches. This sound is described in the next verse. Saghoshodhartarashtranam hridayani vyadarayat nabhascha prithivim chaiva tumulo vyanunadayan. And that tremendous sound reverberating through the earth and sky pierced the very hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. The sound made by the Pandavas in response to that made by Duryodhana's army was so tremendous that it pierced the very hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. The simultaneous sound reverberated and echoed wave after wave, bouncing from the earth to the sky and back again. The magnificence of the Pandava war cry pervaded the entire atmosphere, creating panic in those of the opposing side. Again, Sanjaya drove home his point that Dhritarashtra's sons were no match for the Pandavas.
This whole section is invoking a lot of India-Pakistan allegory right now.
Yeah.
I mean, something very similar is going on, right?
Yeah.
Recently, I received a very patronizing email, as part of this Vedanta study list. Somebody who had joined this mailing list about 14 years ago. And they're like chiding me that, when we joined this, we were expecting there would be, exclusive emails on the topic of Vedanta and none of this thing about, patriotism and dharma and whatnot. And I give back a very scathing response. Because again, like what's important over here is the context of the Gita. It's not set on an empty stage. There's a whole paradigm of war that's cooling the hearts of everyone who's assembled on this battlefield, and they are ready to wage war. They're ready to fight for dharma. They're ready to sacrifice their lives for the greater good. And I just wanted to spend a few moments talking about this whole idea about war. Is it necessary? Is it good? Is it something that Vedanta students should care about, think about, concern themselves with? And here's the point I'd like to make. When we look at this whole Jagat as a manifestation of Ishvara, um, it's beautiful, and there is order everywhere. It is the order which is pervading it all. But within the order, which is dharma, it is the rhythm, the order that is manifesting as the laws. That order itself is Ishvara, that knowledge itself. This whole Jagat is a manifestation of knowledge. But now, when we talk about dharma, you have different systems that function within. And every system starts differentiating itself with various properties, different colorations. You have the gunas that we speak about. So I'll give you an example. You take any system. Suppose you take an ecosystem. There is an order that is pervading this ecosystem. We have all heard about what will happen if the mosquitoes get eliminated. No mosquitoes, then the frogs will die, and then the snakes will die, and then the rats will you know take over all the granaries and start basically invading our fields, and we'll not have enough food. So this is very delicate balance that is there out in the ecosystem. But none of these individual creatures per se know their dharma. The snake doesn't know that I'm supposed to eat the frog. The frog doesn't know I'm supposed to eat the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes don't know I'm supposed to bite the humans. I'm supposed to bite other animals and lay lots of eggs and proliferate. None of these animals know any of these things that they are doing, and yet there is such a delicate balance that they are all part of without knowing it. It's very beautiful. And so when you look at a system from the outside, it appears as though every single component within that system is responsible for playing a particular role. But if you're looking at it from the standpoint of the individual, they are oblivious to what the system is. And yet their role is so crucial. The Swadharma. That is what Swadharma is all about. Another example is, I've been very fascinated with ant colonies and bee colonies. It seems that they have a lot of intelligence that is responsible for creating these termite mounds and these large ant hills. I don't know how many meters and meters it runs under the ground. There was one video I saw where they basically, I hope they kind of like smoked out the ants so they didn't die, but then they poured liquid aluminum or something into the pores to see how deep the anthill goes. And so then later, when the metal had cooled down, they dug into the ground, and it was like a like massive structure, and with so many different rooms, and there were places where they lay eggs. There's this whole aeration system where oxygen flows, and everything is well maintained, and also it is waterproof. That यहाँ से पानी नहीं जाता because there's some air pressure that's pushing it out. And then you'd wonder that, wait, who's the architect here? Because if we are building a building or something of that sort, then you assign an architect to design things, and then you assign a civil engineer to set the foundations. You assign somebody who's an electrician to basically work with the architect to make sure that the circuitry and everything is right. You work with the people who are experts at I guess weatherproofing or earthquake proofing, whatever it may be. For Japan, you need experts who understand earthquakes before you commission a building. So you have so many experts that are coming together to create a structure as human beings. But for the ants, what are the individual roles? They don't know it, and yet there is an instinct. There's an intelligence factor that is inherited where they've not studied any of these disciplines, and yet they just know what to do. It's a manifestation of large groups. So the ant has only a basic dharma. They have a varna system, right? They have a jati system of sorts. You have the queen, and then you have the worker, and then you have the army ant, and you have these different sort of roles that they're supposed to play, and they continue to play that part. So now what happens is, if one of them decides that no, I'm not going to play my part, then there will be no structure to speak of, because their entire population will come under threat. Likewise, when we talk about human beings, there are certain roles that we have to play. These roles are eternal in some sense. Everybody has some kshatriyatva to them. Everybody has some sense of entrepreneurship, whatever it may be. Vaishya dharma is there, Kshatriya dharma is there, Brahmana dharma is there. Like, we are all studying Vedanta together. I'm not a Jati Brahmin, and yet, we are studying Vedanta. And because there are different interests that we have to play. It's not so much based on what one's Jati is as much as what one's guna and proclivity are. And all of this comes together because when we speak about animals, when you speak about any creature as part of the ecosystem, they by default are following the Samanya Dharma, the Vishesha Dharma. There is no instruction that you need to give to an animal to tell them that this is what you need to do to preserve the ecosystem. Human beings, because we are burdened and in some sense liberated or burdened, it's a matter of perspective, burdened with choice. And this choice makes us decide whether I should do or I should do otherwise, or I should do not do at all. These are three things: karu, nahi karu, ya kuch aur karu. Right? And at every fork, there's a new choice, and then there's a new choice, and there's a new choice, and we have this branching phenomena where small choices lead to large deviations from where we were and where we end up and where we should be. So when it comes to human beings, because we make choices, because we are free-willed creatures, our choices lead us astray at times. Also, our choices are more, how shall we say, they are more prone towards entropy. The path of least resistance, the path of maximum comfort, the path of instant gratification. And those choices usually are to our detriment, because the hard stuff is what needs to be done right now, right? Like if you want a healthy body, a healthy just physique in general, you go to the gym, you work hard now so that you reap the results later. But this instant gratification is a very easy choice. And many of these choices we make lead us towards adharma. When these choices are manifest at a larger communal level, then you have, the phenomena of like Islamic terrorism, for instance, or you have nations practicing terrorism, like in the case of Pakistan. Therefore, we need good people who speak up, who stand up, and who wage war against these adharmic proclivities of people given to poor character, given to poor choices, who create disturbance in the order of Ishvara. And that is why fighting a dharmic yuddha is one swadharma, and supporting this especially is swadharma. Another analogy I can give. If you think of this whole Jagat as Purusha, or just think of the Jagat as akin to a human body. Now, every human body has certain things called antibodies which are produced when an alien particle, alien body, some germ, whatever it may be, invades our body. And then you have this whole army of antibodies that go out and neutralize the threat. So even in the body, there's a certain swadharma, there's a certain amount of quote unquote violence that is perpetrated to win the battle against the adharmis who want to take over the body. Now, I'm not saying the virus or bacteria or whatever adharmis, they don't know what they're doing. But this is just an example I'm giving. So in the same way, if you have cancer cells which are spreading across the body, they're metastasizing. Now you need your body to be able to defend itself from these other cells which are inimical to its very existence. Likewise, if you have cancerous societies, nations that are growing and that are creating disturbance around them, and to peace-loving people like people in India, then somebody needs to stand up. You need the antibodies to neutralize those forces as well. And therefore, when there is a battle, there's a war that's being waged, it is our duty to support the good people who are fighting this war, because they have a lot more to lose than we do. We are comfortable, we have cushy jobs, we are sitting at home in front of laptops. These are people who are battling for their lives. They are battling for the sake of you and I. And it is improper, it is completely inappropriate for anybody to hide behind the curtain of Vedanta over here and say that no, we should only be discussing about moksha at this point, especially when there's there's a there's an event that's playing out, and the nation needs our support and our voice to back it up as well. So I just wanted to share that perspective.
Prashantji, can you tell a little bit more about entropy here? Like the relationship between choices and entropy?
Yes, yes. So entropy in the physical terms is disorder. So you have a system. And just this is just you obviously know, but it's just for like others who might be listening to this. Let's say you have a bottle that's filled with blue colored gas. It's contained within a bottle. And now the moment I open the lid of the bottle, that blue gas starts dispersing uniformly across the entire room. Now entropy, just being very technical. Now the number of spaces that gas has filled have risen substantially compared to its limited volume that it was contained within. And so the number of states that the gas could occupy in that smaller bottle was far less than the total number of states that gas is now able to occupy in the entirety of the room. And so the entropy is measured as a fraction of the total number of states that a certain substance can occupy divided by what it could have occupied earlier. And you can say this is how much the entropy is. So entropy is disorder, it is chaos. Now what happens is this whole Jagat, it is ordered, it's an ordered system. Now one can argue that wait, there is a lot of disorder that's growing as well because entropy grows in time. This is a very fundamental thing, by the way. We could spend a very long time just trying to understand entropy from the standpoint of Vedanta also. And I think it's worth doing that a little bit. So if you think about it, when we talk about the Big Bang, okay, and I know I'm not directly addressing the question, but we'll come to it. The Big Bang was a highly ordered state of the cosmos, which is very perplexing to the scientists because they wonder that why was the singularity that spawned the entire Jagat? We know it is Ishvara, that the Jagat came forth from Ishvara. But as a scientific secular atheist, there's this confusion that okay, where did the universe come forth from? Why was it so highly ordered? Why was it so well contained? Why were the laws so well put together that they led to the formation of galaxies and other physical I guess aspects of the cosmos that we are so familiar with, gravity and electromagnetic forces and nuclear forces and repulsion and vacuum energy and whatnot. All of these things are in a very fine-tuned balance that support life. So now what happens is, as the universe ages, entropy continues to grow. It is almost like the unwinding of a what do you call it? Forget, but you have those toys where you wind the toys and then they or musical boxes. So you wind them first and then you let them go and then they start playing music. So it is almost like that the universe was finely tuned. It was wound together, and then slowly it is unfolding, and entropy grows and it grows and it grows and it reaches a maximal state. Now, what happens is in every system. Now we come back to our life and how it pertains to us. Our goal in life is to reduce entropy in our immediate environment. That is dharma. We expend entropy away into an external system by reducing entropy at a local level. Does that make sense? So, for example, though we say that entropy continues to grow, the fact of the matter is that this body that we have is a very beautiful, harmonized machine that actually reduces entropy by consuming energy from the environment and storing it in a very routinized and compact source, which is the human body. So we take in all of that, and then what we do is we create entropy by breathing. We let out body heat, and then we are letting out entropy into the universe. But we are minimizing entropy as far as the human body is concerned. Now, extrapolate this to a human society. We know that we create more garbage than we clean. We actually pollute the environment and we dump stuff into the ocean and whatnot. So we do create a lot of entropy on net, but at the same time we try to keep our homes clean. We try to empty our garbage cans. We try to take away the trash, we try to recycle things. So we again try to reduce entropy at a local level. So if you see, there's a parallel that's being created over here between entropy and dharma. That the more you reduce entropy in your life, whether it is to clean up your room or to throw out the trash or to recycle things or to take care of the people around you, entropy, even at a mental state, the more disturbed you are, the more agitated you are, the greater the emotional entropy, the mental entropy. But when you're calm, then again there's this localized order, which is the antithesis of entropy. So now what happens is when we have two choices to make, here's what I want to do and here's what I need to do. And if what I need to do is the easier choice, it is the instant gratification based choice, then that choice will lead to greater entropy in our lives. It will either compromise our relationships, it will compromise our environment around us, it will compromise our character, it will taint our personality, it will do a lot of things. So entropy continues to grow, the greater one's propensity towards adharma is. And the greater is one's propensity towards dharma, entropy reduces locally. And therefore, to conserve or rather to preserve the order is what we refer to as dharma, and that is also the very opposite of creating entropy. So in a country such as Pakistan, for instance, this entropy can be measured in terms of anything. As a physical system, as a mental system, as a social system, as an economic system. Their country is in a state of disorder. It's chaotic. Their economy is, all over the place. There was this joke that, Pakistan, it's not a joke, it happened like yesterday only, that they threatened to attack India's economic hubs, like Mumbai. And so that, India's response is that unfortunately we can't do the same to Pakistan because they don't have an economy to speak of. So, but they don't have, a good education. They don't have a good standard of living. They don't have a good monetary system. They don't have a good religion that they're practicing. They don't have good cultural ethics. They don't have a historical background that they can refer to, though they are the same blood as us. They have rejected the Ramayana. They have rejected the Itihasas. They've rejected the Puranas. They've rejected everything that could have been good about them. And they've accepted something that's, completely bizarre. And therefore they have no self identity whatsoever, and that is another form of entropy because it creates a lot of agitation in the mind. Because when you don't have a self identity, the only thing that you can do is figure out a reason to hate somebody else, and therefore India has become their constant I guess they need therapy at the national level, really, and they've not been able to receive that therapy, and therefore the only thing they can do is export terror as a passive aggressive move. So entropy, yeah.
Okay, and when we make local choices to reduce entropy, are we supposed to keep in mind what our dharma is, or is there any guidance there? Like, should we worry both about dharma and entropy, or one implies the other?
One implies the other. This is just a parallel.
Okay.
In like very, it was just a correlation that came to my mind in scientific terms.
Okay.
It appears very close.
Right.
Part of Ishvara's order. And
I've heard sweeping statements before, like, hey, as a general rule of thumb, if you reduce entropy in your decisions, you are following the path of dharma or something like that. So
and
clarification.
It wouldn't be too wrong to say that, except that then what can happen is, if one takes it too literally, it can become obsessive in the sense that, okay, today I'm going to see my guru. My guru is 40 minutes away. I need to go by car. I'm creating a lot of entropy in the world, therefore I'm doing a dharma. You see, so there's a point where it starts becoming a lesser system to follow. It's more like a parallel, but not an exact. Because then you have to measure a different form of entropy which you can't quantify. Which is, I know that if I go see my guru and if I study with my guru, and even if I have to travel and even if I have to waste fuel and create some pollution to do that, there's a certain peace and there's a certain sense of clarity and of course the gain of knowledge and all of these things, chitta shuddhi and all that's going to take place, which I cannot measure, I cannot quantify. But then I have to weigh the cost of what I'm creating as entropy against the the gift of what I receive as a result of going there. And then again, there's no physical way to quantify those two because they're different quantities. So in that is why dharma is a better a barometer for one's actions, because there one knows that there are certain standards and norms to follow, and this is not always a choice, because a choice is only a choice as long as it is not a habit. But that is why it's so important to raise kids with dharmic moorings, because you anchor them to certain precepts of dharma to the point where as they grow up, they don't have to ask themselves the questions, am I doing the right thing? It comes very spontaneously. The only time that they would ever need to ask the question, am I doing the right thing, is if they are encountering something that is net new, that they have not encountered in their past before, or that they have not encountered one of the great characters in their itihasas or puranas before. Should I lie? Again, the thumb rule would be no, but then again, there's a greater good of ahimsa sometimes that can override lying as well, right? So there can be some edge cases that one can talk about. It's like, if somebody is feeling really insecure about how they look, and then they come to you and they're like, oh, does my dress look fine? You're like, yeah, it looks okay. Even if it looks not so okay, you'll be like, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. No, don't worry. You want to give them that assurance, because that's the greater dharma, even if it is not a complete truth. But then how do you pass the value of uh, speaking the truth, satya, to a child? Because then if you say that there can be exceptions, what if they run away with those exceptions and act very clever and start using exceptions to their advantage in a manipulative way? Because now that can also happen. So then you have to caveat it that the only time you can use exceptions when you're speaking a lie is if there is no personal gain that's coming out of it. If there is any ulterior motive, then no, as a standard, you should speak the truth. If there is a greater good that comes out of it, especially to somebody else, then yes, maybe it's worth telling a lie during certain situations. But we find that in our lives, 95% of the time, there's no reason to lie. 95% of the time. So that way, every rule of dharma will have certain exceptions, but they themselves will have the foundations in a greater dharma. So it is circles of dharma within dharma within dharma within dharma, and the biggest circle is ahimsa. As the Mahabharata says, ahimsa paramaha dharma. That is where the citation originally comes from. And this dharma is a mahadharma, and within that dharma are embedded, I won't call them lesser, but you can say more incidental dharmas, like satya and parigraha and this and that and brahmacharya and all, and even your varna dharmas, jati dharmas, karma, profession based dharmas, all of them come within ahimsa. So now I would argue that fighting a war with Pakistan is ahimsa. Now somebody will be like, are you crazy? Are you completely out of your mind? Because there are lives that are going to be lost. How's it ahimsa? For the same reason that if your body is suffering from cancer and you have to undergo some chemotherapies, radiotherapy, whatever therapy it may be, in order to utilize those cancer cells, there will be some collateral damage. The healthy cells will also die. Your hair will fall. Your skin will start wrinkling. You'll have a lot of other issues with it. But you have defeated the enemy, and there's a cost that you pay for it, and that is a greater dharma. Likewise, if you have a cancerous outgrowth, a nation who's bent upon your destruction, then yes, you fight back. You fight back. That's dharma. So always, what we find is these laws, whether we talk about the order, increasing entropy, localized entropy versus global entropy, this, that, and all. The fact that it should stun us, it should completely blow our mind that we are able to express this in some logical framework. That means that if you can express something mathematically, logically, coherently, then that means that Ishvara has put this Jagat together well enough so that it can be explained. A chaotic system cannot be explained. Only an ordered system can be explained. Therefore, even chaos is actually part of the greater order. Christianity may have gotten this completely wrong in some sense, that they see things as good versus evil, God versus the devil, order versus disorder, etc., etc. But we as Vedanta students, as dharmis, we don't see a dichotomy. We see only the order, and chaos is also sustained within the larger order. It is not a separate thing. It is not something to be afraid of. It is something to acknowledge.
Okay.
Um, even when we talk about yajnas, for instance, like there's some sort of like local entropy that's created, no? Fire, and you're creating heat, and you're doing a lot of this thing. So again, that entropy thing will not completely apply over here. Economics will apply better when you do yajna, because it is dharmic to trade. Trading is very dharmic. Trading is what generates wealth. Um,
So, sorry, you said yajna should be considered as trading. Is that what you said?
in a very loose sense, it's economic in the sense that today, I give this example. I gave this to Nati one of these past few weeks, I think. You have two people, only two people in the world on an island. Now, one person, is self-sustaining. The other person is self-sustaining. But in order to sustain themselves, they spend their whole life just working. Because imagine that now you have to, get some coconuts from the tree. You have to, you know, have some rice paddy prepared, and then you harvest it, and then you have to, give yourself a haircut, and then you have to go and tailor some clothes for yourself, and you just have to do things constantly or on the go. And so then what one person decides is that, look, we have been living in our own respective silos. That's stupid. Let's barter. I'll give you some coconuts. You give me some rice. And so that guy says, okay, fine. I'll only grow coconuts on my field. You grow only rice on your field. And then you become an expert in your trade. I become an expert in my trade. We create economies of scale. And then we do that. Then the first guy says, okay, I'll tailor your clothes. You give me haircuts. Okay. So now that guy has also become an expert at tailoring. And this guy's become an expert at cutting hair. And so now they have to do fewer things because you can scale up your manufacturing when you have to do it for more people. Now imagine that you have third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eight different people on the island, and they all develop a certain expertise. Now you've created something marvelous. What you've created is a society that, for the first time in human history, has free time. Free time. Otherwise, if you're a hunter-gatherer, you don't have civilization. You have culture, but you don't have civilization. And let's face it. I don't want to be crude or anything of that sort, but tell me, out of all the civilizations on planet Earth, what great monuments, what great forms of art, what great forms of mathematics, science, sculptures, whatever, have the sub-Saharan tribes created, or have the Aborigines created, or have the people in Java, the natives there created, or the Amazonian rainforest? What have they created? Nothing. Now, am I saying that there is something inferior in their mind? Or no, it's not. It's opportunity. It is lack of a civilized world. And so because they're always on the go, because they're hunter-gatherers, because they cannot settle down in one place. Yes, they have their own rituals and they have their own ceremonies and this ayahuasca ceremony, and they have their own relationship with Ishvara in a different way. I'm not undermining their chitta shuddhi or their ability to connect to the whole, to the divine. No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about civilizational artifacts. The great civilizations when you talk about. Every civilization that was great was settled down. The Egyptian civilization was because of the Nile Valley, the Nile River Valley, which was very fertile. The Saraswati Valley, Bharat. The Ganga Valley, Bharat. Mesopotamia, what river? I forget. Tigris or
Tigris
some
and
fertile.
Euphrates. Yeah.
Yeah. So there again, a fertile place, civilization. And likewise, different parts of Europe as well, along the Rhine and then along the River Seine in France. Civilizations developed there and they became cultural centers. River Thames, right, in UK,
Yeah.
London. So isn't it amazing that some of the greatest civilizations were built around rivers? It's not a coincidence. It's a fact of life. And so what I mean by that, coming back to this whole thing, I forget what was the point. Trade. So when you settle down and when you're in one place, you're able to barter, you're able to create expertise, and you are able to create art. Because art is a luxury consumption. It is not something that you do when you're trying to survive roski roti. You can't do that. A person who's living hand to mouth is not able to indulge in the arts because they are so caught up in their survival mode that there's no way they can appreciate good music, Ilya Laja, as you were saying, or Mozart, or whatever. You can't do that. You just can't. You just have to worry about your day-to-day life. So now you settle down, you have a civilization, you trade, you create an economy, and everybody is wealthier and better off. You create wealth by passing it around. You create it. You don't just transact it, you create it. There's a whole theory around that as well. Now, Yajna, here you are transacting with somebody else. It's the Devas. You offer something to them, they offer something back to you. And now you've created an interplanetary sort of transaction. It's no longer with China and Russia and USA. Now it is with the Devas. And so what you've done is you opened a new doorway, a new gateway to a different world where you can transact. And those transactions are very exotic in nature. The gifts that you receive from them is very different. It is very different from what you would commonly encounter. And that is why it is a great dharma to actually perform lots and lots and lots of yajnas and continue to transact with the devas.
What is the idea behind this, Prashantji? What is the idea behind yajnas in general?
Speculation, okay, not just my thought process. Not for in order to answer this, somebody has to be very learned in the karma kanda, Veda Purva, and over there, only what little bit I'm able to speculate is uh, we don't live in an isolated system. If you really hold a gun to my head, and if I'm supposed to say something, I believe life on planet Earth may have been spawned by the Devas. Like just the initial seed of DNA and RNA synthesis and things like that. Like it's very hard to believe that these things came about uh, through chance factors. Very hard to believe. There has to be some sort of genesis to all of this. And I believe that the relationship of Manushas with the Devas is very ancient. It is very palpable. Some people can experience it. Some people can transact with the Devas. Some people may have encountered the Devas in their deeper meditations, etc. And so they know that their existence is a real thing. And there is also a key. Like today you have a doorway and you have a key that you use to open it. And the keys over here to access those realms are our sacred chants and the sacred
Mhm.
rituals. So it is a doorway to the devas who live in their own respective lokas. Lokas are spheres of existence, just like experience, just like ours. Prithvi loka is a loka. That way you have different lokas, and that is where they dwell. And these are you can say the devas are forces of nature that have a sense of personification to those forces as well. Personified forces, where they are
Okay.
responsible for governing certain laws of nature.
So
And
things like rain and water and weather and food and wealth and things like that.
absolutely.
Okay.
What we call a chance factor is only our lack of understanding of how karma operates. And it's not just a lack of understanding, it is impossible to understand. There's no
Mm.
way the intricacies of the karmic connections can be fully explored, and forget fully, even partially it cannot be explored. Because there's so much at play over here. And it is not only our connections with each other, with other creatures, with our ancestors, but also with the devas. And there's a certain debt that has to be paid to the devas, and the devas also grace us with a lot of security, a lot of wealth and rainfall. And today, if you just think about this Goldilocks zone that we live in, planet Earth, there's a book called the Goldilocks Enigma. I forget what it's called, but it talks about how beautifully situated our planet is. That you go a little close towards the sun, and all the water will evaporate, and you go further away, it turns into ice. And we are just at the right spot where organic life can develop, where carbon atoms, which are very very I guess I forget the chemical term for it, but they have high valency, right? Valency, I think,
Mhm.
because they have like four different electrons that are ready to mingle with everybody else. And so all of life is carbon based that we are familiar with right now. And it's so breathtaking when you think about it, that just these atoms, these molecules, these structures come together And supposedly we're able to have these conversations. It's not inert. It's not inert. It's pervaded by this order, by this intelligence, by Ishvara. And so um, the point I'm trying to make is that these devas are personifications of different forces that we have encountered in the Shastras, Agni, Vayu, Surya, etc. But also remember that Shastras were also, how do I explain this? The rishis saw in their vision these teachings, but the rishis were also contextualized by what was their contemporary exposure.
Mm.
You can only express something in a language you understand. So, I can't express a color that I've never seen before.
Right.
So there must be so much that the rishis have also encountered that would be an impossibility to explain in human language, first of all. And second is that there may not have been a cultural context within which it could even have been communicated, even if it were understood. And uh, and so many of the Vedas have been lost. What survives is a small, tiny little morsel of the sum total of mantras. And more importantly, the lokas that we speak about, I forget what there's a Sanskrit term for it, but it's more like it's indicative. It's not absolute, if that makes sense.
Oh, Tatastha Lakshana?
That is the Lakshana. I forget what it's called, but I'll come back to that. I heard Puja Sabri say it once. So it's more like if you talk about seven lokas, Bhuva, Suha, Maha, Tapaha, Jana, Satya, all of this. And these lokas are only this is etc. There's an etc. after that. There are other lokas also. There are countless other lokas, there are countless other beings, and they're all very multi-layered. But we sort of just create a broader category as opposed to a granular category. It's not an itemized list of everything. It's more like this. Stuff like this is there. Right? So even the forces and even the devas that we speak of, it's just a partial list. There would probably be a deva that's controlling electromagnetic forces. There would be a deva that's controlling light and different types of waves, etc. Because it's all manifest. And when you talk about a kingdom, today you have Pradhan Mantri, but then you need those subordinate mantris also. You need cabinet ministers, finance minister, and agricultural minister, and etc. to keep things in order. So all of these devas are ultimately having their source in Ishvara. But then again, they have their own respective assignments as glorified jivas like us. But they are glorified jivas with the higher upadhis. I wanted to emphasize this part also, that the devas are also jivas, but their upadhis are superior to ours. So we have Manusha Upadhi. We can say our Upadhi is superior to a termite. And the termite cannot understand everything about us. The termite doesn't know what a human being is capable of or what a human being does. Nothing. It's a termite. Its intelligence is limited. Likewise, for us, our capability is not, it is finite to the point where we are smart enough to conceptualize the concept of infinity. We are not smart enough to understand what infinity is. But we can conceptualize it. We can abstract a concept, call it infinity, a number that is profoundly large, that has no end. But then when you are faced with such an entity, you have no idea what that means. So likewise, this is how much we are able to absorb. We have never seen a deva. We have never seen how resplendent they could be. We only have seen pictures and descriptions of them. We have no idea what Indralok could be like. It's talks where Amravati, I think, and it talks about the city being studded with gems, that the houses are like gemstones and this and that.
Is
And
this the
whatnot.
conception of the rishis, or is it? Um, how do we understand how the rishis saw this and they were able to conceptualize this?
They would have seen it, and there would be no human way to express it.
Okay.
Sometimes we have two forms of limitations. One form of limitation is a personal human limitation, which is that I may not have the Shashi Tharoor level of eloquence to express something as well as he could. That's one example. Because you take somebody like Rahul Gandhi, They both watched the same movie. And they both write very different reviews. Pappu will write something like, "Oh, good movie. It was nice. I liked it." Okay. Tarun will write that, "No, this movie was exquisite." And this and that. And he was like, he'll give a 30-minute speech about all of this. So that there's that expressive capability. Let's assume the rishis had that capability. But the second limitation is I can only describe those things in a human language to other humans that the other humans have encountered. If I saw a color that is outside of the rainbow spectrum, beyond infrared and beyond ultraviolet, and even if that color was known to me, they take here's the best example. Okay, the best example I can think of now, the Virat Rupa that Arjuna sees. What we see as those depictions in the pictures and all is a very watered down version of what Arjuna would have encountered. It does not intimidate us. It does not frighten us. It does not put us in awe. Like, oh no, please go back to your regular form. This is too much. I can't handle it. Imagine a brave guy like Arjuna. If he's getting freaked out because it's such an overload of sensory inputs. It's so much to handle that such a brave Yodha cannot handle it. Who are we? So if Arjuna was asked afterwards by Yudhishthira, "Hey Arjuna, what did you see?" What can he say? I can't explain. I just cannot explain. You have to see it for yourself. So that's what it is like. So what we encounter in the Shastras, we should never ever feel that it is very limited. It is probably infinitely more profound than we can assume. Infinitely more profound than we can understand, and infinitely more profound than the rishis could express based on the limitations of human language, because all language is based on the relative nature of words, the relative nature of objects. Every word describes an object. Every object is rooted to a word. But what words do you use for an object that you've never seen before? You'd have to create a whole new language to describe what you've seen. It would be impossible. And that's why, like, what we have is just a very, it's an analog, and it's a highly reduced, low granularity, low resolution analog of the totality that's out there, what we refer to as the lokas and the devas.
When Krishna says that annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavaha yajnad bhavati parjanya, in third chapter, says from yajna rain is produced, right? Is this exhortation to propitiate the devas of rain, or what is indicated there?
Did I ever share the story of Pujya and the Kariri Yajna? I might have.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I'll share that story. Pujya Sabji was a teenager, probably a little younger than that. I don't. This was in the 1930s. He was probably not a teenager even then, and he wanted to have proof of yajnas. So okay, let's be technical. You can't have a proof of anything. You can't. Proof is a very rigorous word, and proof implies a very rigorous thing. It's deductive. So yajnas, there's no proof. Evidence, yes, I have evidence. So let's say Pujya wanted some evidence, and he went to a local pujari in Banjakudi, and he told this pujari, one second. He told the pujari that how can I be assured that these yajnas and all of these things really work? So the pujari didn't say much. The pandit just said that look, let's make it happen. So he in those days asked Pujya Swamiji to collect 500 rupees, which was a huge sum for somebody living in 1930s in a small village. So he had to collect this amount from all of his neighbors and family members, etc., etc. He pieced together 500 bucks, and then they performed the Kariri Yajna. This was in the midst of summer, not during monsoon or any of that. And the goal of the Kariri Yajna is to invoke rain. So they performed it in this chowk in the village. And before the Purnahuti was offered, it was doused by rainfall. The rainfall was a cloudburst. It did not occur in the nearby perimeter outside of that small area. It all happened within that small perimeter, within that, just that single block. Just a cloudburst. And then if you looked up, it would be like, yeah, it's mostly blue skies everywhere else. But cloudburst happened. Now, Pujya Swamiji said, I don't know how it happened. I don't know why it happened. I don't know what caused it. But after that day, I never doubted the efficacy of yajnas. So now, if you think about it, I'm speculating because everything I say is subject to somebody else providing a better model. But whole of Vidya Jagat is explicable only in terms of models. That's it. Maya is also a model, as we spoke about last in the 18th elephant. We have a way of explaining things. Today, if you talk about language, you have a linguistic model, English. There's a certain syntax that's associated with it. It's a form of communication. Is it a perfect language? No. Is Sanskrit a perfect language? Probably not. Because if you can conceptualize that today if Ishvara would come and create a language, call it a programming language, call it a human language, call it some language that would be able to interface with every single system in the world, then that would be maybe like a hypothetical perfect language. We don't have that. So that means that whatever we have created is a model, it's a good enough way to explain things. So now what I'm trying to explain is, today, you talk about a weather system. A weather system is it's a semi-chaotic system because you cannot predict it with great accuracy. You can sort of give a percentage ki, I think there's a 30% chance of rainfall, but you cannot be accurate about your predictions, about your timing, about a lot of things. That's why you have tornado watches, like in Texas and in Atlanta also. Tornado watches, then it becomes a tornado warning. But they can't tell you for sure that a tornado is going to touch down over here. Now, there are so many different factors. The factors that we cannot control for have a probabilistic nature. When we invoke the grace of the Devatas, in some sense, the way they are interfacing with our world to support us and our causes is by gaming the probabilities in our favor, so that when these probabilistic collapses take place, they happen in a way that's favorable to us as opposed to unfavorable to us. And then there's no way you can point it back because they don't leave a trail. There's no trail. It's just a gaming of the probability.
Okay.
Because if it were, well, that's my hypothetical model. If it weren't that, then there would be some, it's like you catch somebody red-handed. It would have left a trace behind. And that would allow you to trace the cause back to some divine entity or whatever. And over here, there's no way to trace it back except through your Shraddha. That yes, this is caused by the Devatas. So what caused the moisture to condense and the cloud burst to happen in that area? It's very probabilistic. And the probabilities work at the microscopic scale, which makes it even harder to figure out why it happened. Think of the two-slit experiment. There's no way you can put you can impute any intention to an electron to appear as an electron or to appear as a wave. You can't impute intention upon it. And yet, you know that it's happening. How it happens, why it happens, etc. is beyond our capacity to understand. And that is how I believe the Devatas would probably be interfacing with us to give us the desired results that we are looking for without leaving any trace behind. Very clean and also very subtle, not in a gross way. There's no hand of God that's sweeping up from the sky and performing miracles that you can see. These miracles are invisible to us. And how can they be invisible if they are at a system that is invisible to us at the quantum level or something even less? Again, quantum is also a system we've developed. So who is to say that is what the Vedas are using? It's just our system. It's our mathematical explanation. But I'm saying something akin to that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Understand. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry that I stretched the conversation too long today. So
No problem, no problem. Yeah, this was good. We'll convene next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Namaha. Hari Om. Namaste.
thank you.
Thank you.